Making America smart again. It's the Krieger Files with Dave Krieger. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Listen to the Krieger Files and learn from your mistakes. It's the government's worst nightmare. Dave Krieger.
Here we are on our Tuesday morning segment. For those of you just joining us right now, would you believe that Elon is doing more good than harm? You thought I was going to say the other way around, didn't you? No, actually, he is now. See, this is the thing about all the left wing, all of these libtards out there that are losing it over the fact that Musk was going to get into the Social Security files and invade and steal your Social Security checks and invade, and I'm just like, no, that's not what he was going to do. So you see, they like to blow it. The other side likes to blow it way out of proportion and scare all the Social Security recipients half to death, thinking all of a sudden it's going to go away. I mean, it's bad enough that they're saying, well, the Social Security Administration is now reporting that Social Security will be gone in 8 years. You remember that? We have to increase the age that you can start drawing Social Security to. If you want to get premium benefits, you wait until 70. Then it's going to be 71. Then it's going to be 72. And they'll have it, at some point in time, 5 or 6 years down the road, you'll have to be 76 or 77, and half of you will be dead. Because the majority of you out there, numbskulls, that believed the government was going to take care of you when you got older, we're going to be sadly disappointed, or in the alternative, you're not going to exist anymore, and the government now doesn't have to pay everybody all these benefits. Well, Elon Musk decided, on a condition to the president, that he was going to investigate Social Security and found out 12 million people. That is like almost a tenth, okay, of our database of Social Security recipients. 12 million people are older than 120 years old, eligible for Social Security. Millions of super centenarians. That outnumbers the current U.S. population drawing. Where's this money going? I mean, if you've got more than 12 million people in the Social Security Administration database of eligible benefit recipients being older than 120, we have a problem here because nobody in America lives more than 120 years old. So where is this money going? This is all Doge right now, okay? So everybody's patting themselves. Oh, yeah, see what Trump's doing. It's all good. And see all the people who are getting these checks, where are they going? So he actually went on his own platform, X, and shared a chart of the various age brackets. The chart shows more than 17 million centenarians who are marked as alive and eligible for the benefits from the Social Security system, of whom more than 12 million are allegedly older than 120. More than 1,000 individuals are listed, are you ready for this, as being between the ages of 220 and 229. Another person is purportedly in the 240 to 249 age bracket. Folks, Adam lived to be 969 years old and Eve lived to be 734. Come on. The bloodlines have shrunk. People don't live that long. So what in the hell's going on in the Social Security Administration? Well, their acting commissioner, Michelle King, reportedly resigned over the weekend. They had a dispute with Doge over the Elon Musk-led group's efforts to access sensitive government records. She couldn't handle it. She's been a career federal worker, been with Social Security since 1994, and quit over a disagreement. Oh, boo-hoo. And was replaced by Leland Dudek. He's been supportive of Doge's efforts to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. So, he's going to serve as acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration until Trump's pick to lead the agency, Frank Bisignano, is confirmed by the Senate, according to the outlet. That's the Washington Post reporting on this. It's amazing how the Washington Post all of a sudden jumps on it. The oldest living person in the world, according to Guinness Book of World Records, is Tomiko Aituka, 116 years old, of Japan. So maybe Twilight is real and there are a lot of vampires collecting Social Security, according to Elon Musk. Wow. 20.789 million Americans are collecting Social Security benefits over the age of 100. But when you drill into the figures, the benefits are still being paid out to folks over 140 years of age. Folks, this is a scam. Not only that, but Doge also says that there are $4.7 trillion in U.S. Treasury payments missing identification codes. In other words, they don't know where to track the payments. They don't know who they're going to. 4.7 trillion. That's a T, folks. T is in Tom. Wow. 4.7 trillion. Think about that. I couldn't make that in my lifetime. Can you? Wow. Oh, they just 4.7, that'll buy a lot of lap dances, won't it? Jeez. Unbelievable what I'm seeing here. You talk about drunken sailors in a strip club. I mean, this is your Congress right here and your DOJ that's investigating all of Trump and his opponents rather than investigating all the fraud and the waste going on in its own government. They don't care. All they're doing, they're just printing money and driving inflation through the roof. See, because you know as well as I do that the more money that Treasury issues, the dollar gets devalued. In the meantime, the price of gold, we have told you this. We've had Fred Deshefsky on the show from U.S. Coin Capital. Gold's about to reach gold status. This precious commodity is flying commercial from the UK to New York in droves as global speculation about a trade war was spurred by President Trump's policies. This has ignited financial institutions to get their hands on gold bullion now. Why? Because investors are worried Trump's going to institute a tariff on gold. So now they're keen on getting it into the U.S. before a duty gets imposed. But gold's racking up frequent flyer miles because those fears about tariffs have resulted in a gap between prices for physical gold in the UK, where the Bank of England houses it, and in New York, where future contracts on gold are sold. So now you got gold futures at a record high, closing out last week at $2,909 an ounce. Prices of gold per ounce in London were $20 cheaper. Highly unusual difference. So what are they doing? They're flying it all over here now. Interesting. And if you're in line to get gold, you may be there a while. Waiting times to get the bars from the Bank of England vault have spiked to so long as 8 weeks as it struggles to keep up with demand. But I mean, look at it this way. How much does a bar of gold weigh? We can afford that, really? I mean, come on. Let's be honest with ourselves here. I mean, they're not the only ones. England's not the only one worried about the gold and how much it costs. And the fact that if it's importing stuff, they're going to pay a tariff on it. Well, Nissan, for those of you out there, their CEO is now saying we might move car manufacturing out of Mexico because of the Trump tariffs. This is Makoto Uchida. Oh, dome regato, Mr. Roboto. Haha. Yep, the CEO of Nissan signaled if the U.S. imposes these 25% tariffs on products from Mexico, the automotive company may have to move production out of that country. So since they're exporting a large volume to the U.S., can we call them rice burners? Well, they're four-cylinder, and, they are fairly good running cars, folks. But you know what, Nissan? Listen, Machito, I'm talking to you, the CEO. If you really, Makoto Uchida, yeah, you need to move your plant back here into the United States of America and quit relying on that cheap labor. These people are already freaking out because the electric vehicles aren't doing what they were supposed to do. We've had to go through 4 years of this BS, listening to, gas bag Biden, gaslight America, and electric vehicles, and how wonderful it is when we have a failing power grid. How's that going to work? And I mean, all the utility companies are out there. Yes, buy more juice. Yeah, where are they going to get it from? We have a failing power grid. The power companies are doing squat to fix it. Why? Because FERC is not ordering them to do anything with it. See, because FERC is only federal. Once it gets past federal and goes to the states, then it's up to the state utility commissions to regulate the stuff. And they're not. They're just waiting for the next EMP attack. Can you imagine that? Power goes out, everybody starts screaming. Imagine the power going out. Imagine it going out for years. Imagine that. See, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, everybody knows exactly how to cripple this country. We have vulnerability. It's not just China attacking our water supply, because they're doing that too. But I mean, they go after the electric grid. I mean, we've had intermittent sabotages of electric equipment in the United States of America already, and nobody's paying attention unless you live in the affected area. Then you are. Then you realize how vulnerable you are, and every time the power goes out, you get on your cell phone and you start screaming. Well, in the event of an EMP, this thing right here I'm holding up to the screen does not work. It's fried unless you have it in an EMP bag. I have one sitting over there in my office, and you can put it in there and you close it up and it protects against EMP, which means you can use it. However, everybody goes, oh, did you hear that? Krieger said we could. No, Krieger didn't say you could still use your cell phone even if it was in an EMP bag. What it does is it protects the phone from EMP, but it doesn't mean that the rest of the country, I mean, what happens to the cell towers? Fried. Now you can't use it because the cell towers won't pick up your signal from your phone because they're fried. So even if you put your cell phone in an EMP bag, you're going to be waiting, several years before you can use it again. Not good. That does. EMP is like this hopeless thing that sends everybody into the dark ages, which is why previously I've asked people, how many of you have manual devices like can openers, all the things you rely on electricity for? How many of you have a coffee maker that doesn't plug into a wall that you put a pot in and hit go? How many of you have just a regular coffee pot you can put over a fire and brew your coffee in the morning? You see, we are not as prepared as we think we are, folks. Russia and China know that the only way to knock out the United States of America, and it doesn't matter about that 10% tariff. Like I said, this is all basically fluff that the Trump administration is throwing on all these foreign countries to scare them into compliance. That's what it's doing. And of course, those of you that are having a hard time trusting flying on airlines, or yesterday's crash in Toronto of that Delta Airlines CRJ, that sure didn't help matters much, did it? Fortunately, 80 people survived it. 18 were taken to hospitals. 3 are still in critical condition. Nobody's dead yet. So that means they're stable, the 3 that are in there, including 1 child. And of course, if you didn't have your seatbelt on and the plane flipped upside down, those of you watching the videos saw it, and the engine caught fire because there is fuel in the gas tanks. For those of you who don't know where the fuel goes, it goes in the wings, folks. So, there was fuel left in the tanks when it landed, and so boom, here it goes. They were lucky. The people that were in that CRJ that flew over the Potomac that got hit by a Army helicopter were not so lucky. All 67 bodies have been recovered from that, and what have we learned? Did we get scared and not fly anymore? And what about the CDC? What's going on here with this bird flu? That's what I want to know. Is this a return of the COVID playbook? A lot of people seem to think so. See, one person gets it, and all of a sudden, oh my God, we gotta slaughter all the birds and drive the price of eggs through the roof. So this H5N1 bird flu, how do we know that thing wasn't conjured up in a lab somewhere? Apparently, they've commissioned AI to do a study. AI, AI, I'll do the chicken dance. How about that? Yeah, roll out the barrel. Yeah. Yeah, roll out the barrel of BS is what it is. AI, they finally commissioned AI. Would you do a study, AI? And would you tell us, where did the COVID-19 virus come from? Well, it came from a lab, according to AI. Oh, boy. You see, you can program this computer with anything, and it will spit out what it thinks you want to know. Like I said, this is an issue where, then all of a sudden you start, COVID is like, You go into the store. I went into a Walgreens yesterday, and there's a sign on the store. COVID-19 may be on the rise. Time to get your COVID and your flu shot. I go, what is this, a Travis Kelce commercial again? Oh, my God. These people are nuts. And I'm sitting there talking to all these old codgers standing in line going, can you believe that? And one guy goes, oh, yeah, the cases of the flu, they're really getting. I said, where are you getting your information from? Well, of course, the news reports are, which news reports? You won't hear it on my show. Yeah, people might be getting the flu. A lot of them probably have school-age kids. And what do school-age kids do? They go to school. Their immune systems are great until they come in contact with another sick kid because his parents are working for a living and can't afford to keep him at home. So they send him to school sick and he contaminates the rest of the class. And then they all go home and give it to their working mommies and daddies. You see, that's how it gets spread. Because mommy's got to stay home now instead of going to work and take care of the kid. And then she's at risk of losing her job. All because of raising a family. You see how all this stuff works against the family unit? But they demand you go to public school, and if you don't go, you're truant. And we're going to send the truant officers, and we're going to take you out of your home, and we're going to put you in foster care because the state makes a lot of money when that happens. You see how that works? Well, they're working both sides of the fence here, aren't they? First, they want you to go to school, then you get sick, then you go home, then you're truant if you don't have a doctor's excuse. And then the state comes and they say, hey, the CPS is here, Child and Family Protective Services, and they're here to take your child because we don't think you're taking a good care of them, and we know how to take care of your offspring better than you do. And this is how they bust up the family unit, folks. So, if you want to stop the progress of the spread of flu, well, let's see. What's the number one thing that most people can do? What they did during COVID? They brainwashed everybody. No, not wearing a mask. I mean, Trump is doing his best to cut federal funding to all the colleges and public schools that decided they were going to mandate COVID jabs and that they were going to mandate, not wearing. I mean, if you're going to have the COVID jab as a requisite of getting in and you have to wear a mask, well, Trump's going to cut your federal funding. How's that? Yeah, so much for secondary education, huh? So, I mean, why do we need it? I mean, this whole thing, I think Trump is starting to realize, hey, something's not right here. And when you get people like Peter McCullough, who I'd like to get on the show very soon, when you get people like that testifying in front of the Idaho legislature and telling them, look, this whole COVID thing was pre-planned. It was not effective. The whole thing was a joke. All these illnesses and deaths are tied to the jab. And people still, they believe it. James Thorpe says 1% are still boneheads and believe everything the government tells them. And I'm like, I think that figure is a little higher. If you got to go convince a state legislature that there's a correlation between the shot and all these people dropping dead or becoming adversely affected, if you have to go convince a legislature, we have a lot more than 1% that are boneheads that believe everything their government tells them. Of course, they think, because they're state legislators, that their caca doesn't stink and that they know better than we do and they can take care of us better than we can. That's what we call a nanny state, folks. Then they use your cell phones to track you, track every move that you make. And if you stay in your house, well, what does that tell you? You stand a chance of staying healthier. So what do people do? It's like lockdown without the lockdown, right? You stay home. You don't want to go out because you're afraid you're going to catch something. This is not like a nursing home where you can get syphilis or the clap. Because, in assisted living, because there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of horned toads out there that, they still want to get laid. I mean, all this stuff is crazy. But see, the lockdown, you see how the mentality happens? The lockdown has forced everybody to start thinking differently. And instead of going out and doing the things necessary to promote yourself, we all want to hibernate in our houses and be scared. And now here's the playbook again with bird flu. Right. All you got to do is put a bird feeder outside your house and you'll see how many birds come and frequent. And they don't look sick to me. They look hungry. When the temperature gets down to freezing, they all want to eat. Yeah, bird flu, my ass. This whole thing is nonsense, folks. And if you're going to sit there and believe what the government tells you, it's no wonder they don't want to listen to me. Because I tell them, you need to really scale down the CDC to a very minute few. And the NIH, same with that. Every time they open their mouth, it's a scare tactic on the American people. These people need to go to prison. In the recall news, LG, if you haven't heard already, that's Living Great or Living Large or whatever, LG is recalling some of its electric ranges due to a fire hazard. Seriously. And of course, if you go to LG.com, there's about 500,000 units involved in the recall date, and they have to basically come to your house and repair them. Those of you that have an LG range, there's a whole list of model numbers, folks. I'm not going to read them all. You can dial up LG. They have a toll-free number. It's an 800 number, 399-3265. You can call them between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 800-399-3265. Look, if you missed the phone number, don't panic. I told you to keep your pen and paper handy. You were going to learn things on this show. So this is one of the reasons why I share this. And recalls, every time we hear about them, we're going to tell you because you might be affected. I told you we're all about legal, financial, and consumer issues here. Social Security, that happens to be a political issue, but it also happens to be a financial issue because so many people are dependent on it because they put their faith in the government. They volunteered into the system. And see, now all the lawsuits are getting filed to stop Trump and Doge from doing what they need to do to clean up the mess. Do you know, and I don't know if you had heard, but on the Federal Register, there are 441 different federal agencies listed. A lot of those agencies are effectively defunct or obsolete. They have been subsumed by other entities, they've been renamed, or they don't exist any longer. 39 of those agencies were temporary commissions created to study one issue and produce a report usually at the end of the year. The Commission on the Future of the United States Aerospace Industry and 21st Century Workforce Commission are two such examples. 12 agencies have closed but have had their duties merged with another agency. For example, the Baez Caldera Trust and the Oklahoma City National Memorial Trust, once separate entities, are now integrated into the National Park Service. Wow. More rarely, agencies were terminated by an act of Congress or administrative shuffling. So went the National Institute for Literacy and the Resolution Trust Corporation. Remember them? RTC, remember them from way back when? During the savings and loan scandal? Remember that? Oh, I feel sorry for those of you who paid a mortgage and didn't get a payoff statement because, you know, when RTC came in and started auditing the savings and loans, they found all these mortgages that weren't released and they started foreclosing on homeowners who had already paid off their mortgages. Then they have to prove all this stuff. You see how crazy this gets just because you went and borrowed money from some government agency somewhere? I mean, this is totally nutty, folks. Huh. Wow. A judge, by the way, has declined to block Doge's access to student financial aid data. That's the next place they're going besides the Pentagon. Oh, yeah. The auditors are looking into the Department of Education student financial aid data. Yeah. This is a lawsuit brought by the University of California Students Association against the Education Department and its acting secretary, Denise Carter, alleging that Doge, seeking to access the Education Department's records, will have access to personal information, including Social Security numbers, as well as detailed financial data of their parents. Oh, folks, come on, grow a pair. Would you get a life? Can I tell you something about all your financial information for those of you libtards out there that don't give a damn about anybody but yourselves? All that stuff is stored in FinCEN, and every time you use your bloody credit card or debit card, there's this little thing called the DTCC in New York, and it captures that information and it logs it. They monitor every single financial every single transaction that you're doing. They monitor it. They know. They don't have to sit there and let Doge go in there. We're just doing a cursory review of stuff, but you want to get your panties in a bunch and go out there and start stuff, right? This is a problem I have with half these people because they just don't have a clue about how the government runs. And when they think that their little pet peeve or whatever it is going to get molested, they get crazy and they start saying stuff that's nutty. For those of you pet owners out there that use Save This Life to chip your dog, the microchip company went out of business over the weekend, and it didn't tell you. If you have Save This Life, this manufactures chips for dogs and cats. If you have your animal chips so they know where, if they get lost, they know where to find them. And according to the Texas Comptroller franchise tax records, Save This Life went bust. It was inactive as of last Tuesday, and now pet parents are scrambling to figure out another option. Yeah, you're probably going to have to go to the vet and have that chip taken out. Kind of nutty the way it works. And if it wasn't for Reddit exposing all of this stuff, we wouldn't know, but now we do. We will be back with Andrew Branca. He is an attorney that's going to talk about the Second Amendment and your rights under the Constitution. Be right back. Be right back. Dave Krieger here. Are you having issues with your credit? With interest rates as high as they are now, this would be a great time to invest in yourself by getting a copy of the Credit Restoration Primer. So when mortgage home interest rates finally do come down, you'll have already taken the necessary steps to get your credit score where it needs to be so you can move forward in life. Thousands of consumers have benefited from the Credit Restoration Primer, and you can too. Go to cloudedtitles.com today.
Many Americans are growing increasingly concerned about the rapidly growing U.S. government deficits, recognizing the additional printing of paper money devalues U.S. currency. To compensate, American gold and silver coins will provide wealth protection. U.S. Coin Capital provides physical gold and silver coins delivered directly to our clients. You can reach us at 1-800-878-2646, uscoincapital.com.
Need a document notarized even when one or more of the signers is out of state? What a faster way to close your real estate deals by getting your documents professionally notarized online at professionalnotaryonline.com. For more information and to book an appointment, visit professionalnotaryonline.com or call Aaron at 941-400-8282. A trusted Krieger Files partner. Good in all 50 states. That's 941-400-8282.
Taking back America, one consumer at a time. It's the Krieger Files.
We're back here on this Tuesday, 32 minutes after the hour on the Krieger Files. And of course, a lot of you are worried about your Second Amendment rights. We have talked about this on the show before because the BATF, which I believe needs to go away, I just think these people have outlived their purpose. This thing about the war on drugs, it's not going to stop. I mean, this is why Trump is trying to do this 10% tariff. He's trying to do a 10% tariff to keep China from shipping in fentanyl because we have too many stupid people out there that like to eat Tide Pods. This is a problem we have in this country. You cannot fix stupid. But then you got these people out there that are advocates for the Second Amendment. We've had some of them on the show before, Gun Owners of America and various other sorts. But here's the thing. A lot of states are passing constitutional carry now, and that may make it a little bit unnerving for some of you to wear your sidearm on your hip, because we all can't be Wyatt Earp. Attorney Andrew Branca joins us this morning here on the Krieger Files. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thanks for asking. You have a new book out that makes it easy to understand the 5 elements of self-defense law, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's not new. It's been out for a few years now. It's called The Law of Self-Defense Principles, is the most recent edition of the book. And it teaches people how to be hard to convict if they've ever been compelled to use force in defense of themselves, their family, or their property.
So you understand what the USCCA is, United States Concealed Carry Association. They charge like $700 for a couple, and it's insurance, but it doesn't cover a lot of different things. There's a bunch of exceptions like any insurance policy. Yours is not like that, is it?
Well, what I do is quite different. So what I do is I'm an attorney who specializes in use of force law. I provide legal consultations to clients. I don't pay their legal expenses, which is what USCCA pretends they do.
Oh, why did they pretend? Tell me. Because, I mean, so many people are duped into joining them, and I can't get them on the show because I'd be asking questions, Andrew, just like I'm asking you. What's the difference? What are the exceptions rules? Why aren't they? I mean, that sounded almost like a sarcastic statement. And I'm just like reveling in it going, gee, really? You mean they don't pay all their claims? Pray tell.
Yeah, they've had a number of clients, members of theirs, fully paid up members who've been involved in use of force events and shootings, and they've simply decided not to cover those members on their own initiative. No real explanation. And of course, as you say, people pay quite a bit of money for this program. I think it's $30 or $50 a month. Don't hold me to it, but it's several $100s a year. And they promise that if you're a member, they'll have your back. But then when the members call, these members I have in mind particularly, they don't have anybody's back. They just leave them hanging in the wind. And they end up getting convicted because they don't have the resources they were promised for the legal battle that follows the self-defense.
So we're kind of squeamish about stuff like this, knowing what we know. And thank you for divulging that. I appreciate it more than you know, because we were members for the longest time. And I finally said, you know what? I can't. I'm reading all the exemptions. I'm reading this. And now you're telling me that they've denied claims. That bothers me because they promulgate, and you can either verify or discredit what they're saying. They claim that it costs several $1,000s to defend yourself in one of these cases if you get charged with use of force. And I mean, we like Florida's got stand your ground laws. Arkansas just recently got rid of the duty to retreat. A lot of them are going to constitutional carry, yet we got a lot of, I can't use Barney Fife anymore, and now I have to use Eugene Tackleberry. We got a lot of these different people out there that are now, cops that just, they don't care if you're wearing a sidearm, boy, they're going to ramp up. What's the cost of defending yourself in one of these things?
I mean, if you've killed yourself in self-defense, but they're charging you, they're going to make you prove it at trial, and it's not hard, and you're charged with murder or manslaughter, which would be the killing charges. It's not hard to burn through a couple $100,000 before you even get to trial.
Ow. A couple $100,000.
So the cost, if you end up going to trial, the cost is very high. Now, in most lawful cases of self-defense, it's recognized as such, so you don't end up getting charged and prosecuted and going to trial. But it's like fire insurance for your home, right? Your home doesn't generally burn down. It's not something you predict will happen. But in the unlikely event that it does happen, the cost can be very, very high.
That is true. So the thing is that what people don't understand is even if you are in a right to carry state or a constitutional carry state, that means you can, it has to say open carry for you to be able to wear a sidearm. Is that right? Is there a difference here I'm missing?
Well, we're talking about two different things now. So there's gun law and there's self-defense law. So gun law is when can you carry a gun? How can you carry it? Into what kind of establishments? Under what conditions? What kind of license do you need? That's all the gun-specific stuff. Self-defense law doesn't really care about whether or not you used a gun per se in self-defense. It only cares about whether or not you were legally entitled to use force to defend yourself. Could have been a gun, could have been a bat, could have been a piano dropped from a great height. It doesn't really matter, but it's a question of whether the use of force was lawful as opposed to whether your possession of that gun was lawful.
So the idea of duty to retreat, which basically means go run and hide. And if they open up your closet door and start waving a machete at you, then, oh my God, my life is in imminent danger. Now I have the right to retaliate. So I just throw a little napalm on the guy and then I'm charged.
Yeah, napalm would be an interesting mechanism of self-defense.
No, we got a lot of veterans out there that were in Vietnam that know how to make that stuff. It's not hard. Gasoline and laundry soap. It's not hard to make napalm, folks. But the thing is that I had to throw that out there to get a laugh this morning, Andrew, because some of these people out there, these law enforcement officers, just don't get it. I mean, you have somebody that dies of natural causes. The police come to the house and they start treating you like you're a criminal because you gave CPR to your loved one trying to bring him back. I mean, come on. I mean, if we've got that kind of nonsense going on, I mean, it looks like our chances may be a little more diminished if all of a sudden now we have to say it was self-defense, Your Honor.
Yes, and you have to keep in mind the police are not paid to be your friend. The police are paid to be agents of the state with the authority to arrest and use force on behalf of the state. It doesn't make police bad people. I like police. A lot of my best friends are police. But you have to understand their role in society. It's not to be the friends of the people they meet when they respond to a call.
I get that. So this framework that's been created by state law, and I mean, we have the federal Second Amendment right. The right to bear firearms shall not be infringed. Keep and bear arms. So the problem is now the BATF comes in and they start putting all these rules forth, and then they go and they kill Brian Malinowski. They march into his home with a search warrant, bang his door in. He thinks he's being home invaded. He comes out there, rips a couple of rounds on the ground to try to scare off these hoodlums. And it turns out to be unannounced BATF agents not wearing body cams. And they put 2 high caliber rounds in his brain and turn it into mush. I don't get this. And they put his wife in her night clothes in a car for 5 hours while they take every gun out of his house. And search the place and ransack the place to me, and now they don't have to answer for it. I mean, what kind of clue is that? I mean, I've got their attorney on my show every so often trying to give me an update, but when the feds come after you, it's really hard to defend on these cases, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lucky matter, right? We give these law enforcement agencies a tremendous amount of discretion, and unless they're kept in check, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's no reason the ATF can't have a formal policy where they are required to use the least intrusive measure to make an arrest consistent with safety. They don't have to show up to the home of a guy who's an administrator at an airport at 5 a.m. in the morning with a rifle-armed team. They can just pick him up at the airport, which is what they should have done, assuming the arrest is even legitimate in the first place. They did not have to use this violent means to arrest this poor guy.
Well, and I know you know the case because, I mean, you study gun law and then you study all the relative cases. We've had John Lott on the program before, so we know about the Crime Research Institute. I mean, we know about all this stuff, and yet Americans are very concerned that if they have all these illegals running around the country that still haven't been picked up and we get into a crisis situation, people are going to have to defend themselves and their property from people who are kicking in doors and windows trying to get at food. It's just these crazy things that people, even if it sounds total lunacy, even if it sounds like that, people are still concerned about the resources they might have in defending themselves. And this is one of the reasons why you're out there, correct?
Correct. We spend most of our effort actually trying to teach people before they're ever in a confrontation how, first of all, don't get into fights you don't need to be getting into, but if you are compelled to get into a fight, know what the legal limits of your authority, your personal authority, is to use force, so that use of force will be so obviously lawful you don't have to worry about being prosecuted. You don't have to pay a lawyer like me, who is not inexpensive, to defend you in court. Where people tend to get in trouble, normal law-abiding people who've never been in trouble with the law a day in their lives, is they have bad information on what it is they're allowed to do in self-defense, and without even realizing it, they step over the legal boundaries and make themselves vulnerable to being charged, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced. That doesn't have to happen. They can know where the rules, where the lines actually are, but it takes a little bit of effort because most of what's out there on the internet on this stuff is bad information, which is, of course, why we do what we do with our book, lawofselfdefense.com, and all the videos we do and all the courses we have and the DVDs and so forth.
All right, so what's the website people can go to get the correct information?
The best thing I would recommend, actually, is in just about a week, we have a free webinar coming up where we talk for about an hour and a half on how to be hard to convict if you have to defend yourself. It doesn't cost a penny, but it is a webinar, live-streamed webinar, so there's limited seats in the software, how all that works. So people do need to register. They can do that at lawofselfdefense.com/hard-to-convict. And again, it's totally free. So,
well, I registered. I want to know. I will be there. And what time does it air?
All right. Oh, it's on the website. I got to be honest, I don't remember.
Okay. I know you're a busy guy.
I have the schedule of it. Yeah.
I get that. All right. We're going to the phones. Brady in Arizona, you have a question for Andrew Branca. Go ahead.
Oh, I just chimed in. I didn't hear what you guys were talking about, but I wanted to just wonder what your comments were maybe on the Bank of England. They have a call on gold right now, and when you get your gold, it's an 8-week turnaround time.
Yeah, we did report that this morning on the show, Brady, and I appreciate your chiming in on that. We already know that they're doing it because Trump is talking about imposing tariffs on gold, and they want to get it over here before that kicks in, if in fact it does. So that's one of the reasons gold is spiking right now, and I appreciate your call. Thanks so much. Back with Andrew Branca here. There is a free copy of the Law of Self-Defense. Is that something else that you provide, Andrew?
Yes, we actually give the book away for free. The book is free. I mean, you can buy it on Amazon, but I think Amazon charges $20 or $25 for the book. If you order it from us, we only ask that you cover the cost of shipping the book to you. The book itself is free, but people should check out the Amazon reviews. It's a very well-reviewed book. But to get the free book, it's very simple, lawofselfdefense.com/free book.
Now, if you have to go to court, you're standing in front of a judge. Many of these who you describe as part of judicial tyranny in an article that you recently wrote. These judicial tyrants issuing unlawful orders that override executive authority, obstructing Trump's core policy initiatives. I mean, and now how does that relate to the Second Amendment?
Well, I mean, of course, again, gun law and self-defense law overlap, because especially in America, most of us who are defending ourselves against a serious attack are likely to be doing that with a gun. So the gun stuff is almost always relevant in self-defense. We're not typically defending ourselves with a knife or with napalm. It's usually a gun. So you do have to make sure that whatever the gun laws are in your jurisdiction, you're following those gun laws so that you don't end up tainting your claim of self-defense. That said, in most states in the country, the gun laws are pretty good and the self-defense laws are pretty good. And if you know what the rules are and you stay within them, you are really extremely difficult to convict because the state bears the burden to disprove your claim of self-defense beyond any reasonable doubt, which is a tough thing to do unless you screw up and give them what they need to do that.
Yeah, like shooting somebody in the back when they're running out the door and you pointed a gun at them and they're going,
exactly,
I don't feel like getting killed today. And you just chased me out on the front lawn and put several rounds in my back. And the government can do it. I mean, they did it to Worth in Colorado. You know, he tried to run for Congress in Colorado. And they shot him in the back running out the back door. Of course, they covered that up. That was, Lake County, Colorado Sheriff. Their officers did that, and one of them died in the process. I don't know. You probably keep tabs on some of this stuff, but I did read his autopsy reports, so I know that all the rounds were exit wounds and they came out the front, which means he was running out the back door when they gunned him down. So, when you have stuff like this, I mean, the government pretty much can get away with anything it wants, but then when you come in, it's like, and you got these judges because they're all, libtard appointees. Here's the problem. You came out with an article, or rather the Epoch Times did, about judicial impeachment. I think you talk about that as well and how it works.
I do.
And so tell me, I don't want people getting their hopes up, but the thing is that Congress has the ability to impeach judges and get rid of judges without going through the formal process, correct? Could you explain it?
Yeah, so there's people mistakenly believe, and this is particularly in the context of federal judges. Every state has its own little system. But people mistakenly believe that federal judges are appointed for life, and the only way to get rid of them is by the formal impeachment process, which means a majority of the House and 2/3 of the Senate has to vote to impeach that judge. That is one way to get rid of a judge, and you can get rid of a judge like that for purely political reasons. You can just not like him, and you can impeach him. But there's another way to get rid of judges that is much easier, and that is that if they engage in misconduct. And a lot of these federal judges who are ruling on these temporary restraining orders, freezing Trump's agenda, are plainly engaged in misconduct. They have wives who are collecting money from these NGOs. Their household finances are being impacted by the orders they're issuing. There's clear conflict of interest that violates the Judicial Conduct Code for United States judges, and they can be simply fired. for having done that. The Constitution says these federal judges hold their offices while they're engaged in good behavior, meaning not bad behavior. So they can be fired simply by a majority vote of the House and the Senate. And the Republicans have both the majority of the House and the Senate. So once they've identified explicit misconduct by these judges, they can be terminated just like anybody can be terminated from a job for misconduct.
And the thing is that I watch the legal blogs on a regular basis, and I watch the state judges being eliminated. It's rare I ever see a federal judge booted out, and normally it's because of some sort of sexual misconduct in office, and he's brought shame on the office, and therefore he voluntarily resigned, because if he's groping his law clerk and trying to make overtures, and they know he's married, and there's a problem within the office, and then the word gets out, and all of a sudden the media picks on it, the judge literally gets shamed out of office. That seems to be the third way of doing it. But see, a lot of judges, we've had some judges that just, they bring firearms into the courtroom. But there's all sorts of stuff that they do. I've seen judges in foreclosure courts throw law books at homeowners who are complaining, hey, Your Honor, wait a minute. And it's like the state bars don't want to do anything. And so now I am privileged to know and be on the front line of people who are now suing state judges in state courts, and I'm finding that the attorney generals for the states are stepping in to try to defend them. What a joke. This whole system, this Article 1 administrative court nonsense, which is exactly what it is, because they're trying to enforce some sort of contract. We're going to have a real enema in this judicial system, are we not?
Well, unfortunately, the courts and the body politic and all of that reflects the choices we make as Americans. I mean, our founders recognized that America could only survive as a righteous nation, people making the right decisions. And to the extent we're corrupted, then we end up with, judges making questionable rulings, prosecutors making questionable rulings. So to a certain degree, we have ourselves to blame. I mean, we got kind of lazy and we stopped paying attention. Most people have no idea what the name of their local prosecutor is or what the names of their local judges are. And if you don't know that, how could you possibly be voting for these people? You're not really. Only a few hundred people are voting in these elections for these judges and prosecutors. And that's kind of on us. I mean, we have to do a better job about caring about this stuff, because these people have unbelievable power and authority. And other than being checked at election for state-level judges, they're not held accountable.
So do we have to, before we move into a county, or have you already done this? I mean, there's 3,041 counties, townships, and boroughs in the United States of America, Andrew Branca. And I mean, have you done the research on some of these sheriffs and judges to see how they rule in certain cases when it comes to gun law or self-defense?
I'll be honest, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to research. Even for an attorney like me, it's difficult to research. We don't have good record keeping on most of these judges, unless there's somebody in the jurisdiction who's personally interested in tracking this stuff and they maintain some kind of website. But there's no government forum or website you can go to that says this is a liberal judge or this is a conservative judge. I know the last time I moved, I'm currently living in Colorado, in Douglas County. I picked Douglas County because it's one of the most conservative counties in Colorado. So because it's conservative, I can have a fair degree of confidence that the judges will be conservative and the prosecutor will be conservative. I can move 10 miles up the interstate here, and I would be in one of the most liberal parts of Colorado, and the judges and prosecutors would be very different.
Yeah, that's a sad state of affairs, because we don't have uniformity in the system. Now, the thing is that LexisNexis and Westlaw, which is basically owned by Thomson Reuters, don't think I don't know this stuff, because I paralegal when I'm not doing this show. And I deal in foreclosure crises and stuff like this, and have been for the last 15 years, and have written books about it. So, when we talk about stuff like this, and we're talking about like Trump, for example, you are getting ready to do a thing about Trump versus the federal courts. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, I'm not sure that went live yet. Did that show go live yet? I definitely recorded it. I think it's with our production team. But Trump going straight to the Supreme Court. This is a terrible issue we have right now, that we're allowing these federal trial judges to issue these nationwide, sometimes worldwide, temporary restraining orders on the president's the president's use of his core and plenary powers as the chief executive of the United States. We have three independent branches of government: Article 1, Congress; Article 2, the president, the executive branch; Article 3 is the judicial branch, but the only court created by Article 3 is the Supreme Court. All the lower courts are literally referred to in the Constitution as inferior courts. They are creations of Congress, not of the Supreme Court. I don't believe any of them have the authority to infringe on the Article 2 executive branch powers of the President of the United States. I think all these temporary restraining orders are lawless, are void, and should just be completely ignored by the President. If the Supreme Court were to issue a temporary restraining order, I'd still be skeptical. Maybe they, as a co-equal branch of government, has that authority, but no inferior court has that authority.
Interesting. And so you're putting this out shortly, correct? And that's going to be on YouTube?
It should be out, not today, maybe tomorrow. I think it's the schedule. I do a lot of shows, so it's hard.
No, I understand that completely. Like I say, you're a busy guy. Right. So basically to boil this all down, because we've got 2 minutes left, to boil this all down, if you're in a liberal county, folks, you need to get to know who your sheriff is, and you need to try to find out about case law involving people that have been accused of, improper behavior when it comes to defending themselves, because you're certainly not going to get it on Westlaw and LexisNexis, because they have a tendency, as I was saying earlier, to not put the homeowner wins when the homeowner wins a foreclosure case. None of that ever gets published in either of these two major publications, legal publications. So, the attorneys don't get to know, because once a win on behalf of a homeowner gets published, just like self-defense law, they hide it, they bury it, so they don't publish it, so you don't know where to turn to. And because 1,500 people will all of a sudden start using that as a template to file their own lawsuits. So, that's how this crazy system is working right now, and why they're covering it up. This is the judiciary's problem, isn't it?
Yeah, if a self-defender wins a trial, there is no appellate law. There is no case law created. Case law is only created when a defendant loses and then appeals. So that means all these opinions in Lexis and Westlaw, by definition, they are about losing cases, self-defenders who lost a trial. Obviously, that doesn't give you a comprehensive understanding of when you are allowed to use force in self-defense.
That's pretty scary, just even knowing the statistics. And appeals courts, the appeals process, we're talking, $10,000 to $50,000 to do an effective appeal, right?
And there's less than a 1% chance that you win on appeal.
That's an even scarier topic. And this is the thing the whole judicial system is ripe with this problem. And I'm glad that Andrew Branca, we're going to have you back on the show as time progresses, because there's a lot of information unfolding right now with what the Trump administration is involved in, and how this whole thing unfolds as time progresses, and what these, the shakeup in New York City and everything else. So I appreciate you being on. It's lawofselfdefense.com. Thank you so much, Andrew Branca. God bless you for the work you're doing. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow for our Hump Day edition. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
With inflation constantly chewing away at the value of paper money, perhaps it's time for Americans to bite back. Ownership of gold and silver coins provides great counterbalance to weaker paper money value. U.S. Coin Capital provides physical gold and silver coins. You can reach us directly at 1-800-878-2646, uscoincapital.com.
Need a document notarized even when one or more of the signers is out of state? What a faster way to close your real estate deals by getting your documents professionally notarized online at professionalnotaryonline.com. For more information and to book an appointment, visit professionalnotaryonline.com or call Aaron at 941-400-8282. A trusted Krieger Files partner. Good in all 50 states. That's 941-400-8282. Dave Krieger here. Are you having issues with your credit? With interest rates as high as they are now, this would be a great time to invest in yourself by getting a copy of the Credit Restoration Primer. So when mortgage home interest rates finally do come down, you'll have already taken the necessary steps to get your credit score where it needs to be so you can move forward in life. Thousands of consumers have benefited from the Credit Restoration Primer, and you can too. Go to cloudedtitles.com today.
Broadcasting to the U.S. and around the world by way of clear digital audio, 22,500 miles above the planet. This is the Global Star Radio Network.